call the meeting to order. Rebecca, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Here.
Hallie.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Thank you. We have one change to our agenda tonight. In the public forum appearances, Rachel Clark will not be here tonight. We will not discuss that issue. However, we will have a representative from Klingner and Associates to discuss the results from the fire station site location. Again, no decisions will be made. They'll just give us the information. Any other changes? Okay, so the consent agenda, approval of the minutes of the November 23rd, 2020 council meeting, approval of November 27th, 2020 payroll in the amount of $123,787.90, approval of December 11th, 2020 payroll in the amount of $152,923.62, approval of USDA Step 1 payment in the amount of $12,975. Approval of USDA wastewater treatment payment in the amount of $77,295. Approval of general obligation debt in the amount of $110,765.65. Approval of state revolving fund debt in the amount of $11,112.50. Approval of the October finance report. Acceptance of the Economic Development Committee minutes of November 23rd, 2020. Acceptance of the Library Board minutes. Resolution of employment in the Police Department. Resolution authorizing funds transfers. Approval of liquor license for Isla, La Hacienda, and Hy-Vee. Approval of total claims in the amount of $392,719.45. There were no claims greater than $75,000. I'd entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Gandy, second by Toohill. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Hallie. Anderson.
Yes, but I'd like to abstain from the minutes of November 23rd.
Great, thank you. So our next order of business is to swear in our new police officer, Mr. Bo Greene. So we're going to come right up here.
Okay, you want to take a picture?
So I want you to raise your right hand.
Hang on.
Yep.
I got it.
And then repeat after me. I, Bo Greene,
I, Bo Greene,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all of the duties
of police officer in the City of Fairfield
of police officer in the City of Fairfield
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Great, thank you. Welcome. That's your new police officer. Thank you for joining us.
Congratulations, Officer Greene. Put him on the spot. Well, it's official. After the 3 weeks.
Oh, did you want to? I can if you want.
Yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've been a deputy at the Ringgold County Sheriff's Office for the last 6 years. Prior to that, I got married to my wife. We have one son and one on the way, due on Valentine's Day. Prior to that, I graduated from Iowa State University with a degree in sociology and interdisciplinary studies. That's pretty much it. That's been my life, law enforcement.
Well, again, we appreciate you coming to Fairfield, and we hope you like it here and your family, and good luck with the new baby.
All right, well, I look forward to getting to know everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, we have a representative from Klingner and Associates to discuss the results from the fire station site location study.
Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. My name is Michael Fries. I'm architect with Klinger and Associates, here to talk about our in-progress study for the site evaluation of the fire station. I brought copies of our assessment to date, if I can pass it around to you. I'll give that to Mr. Scott here. And so what we're doing, we're in the process of looking at a series of 5 sites that were selected to evaluate what we think would be the best location for a proposed fire station within the city. And what I'm going to speak to you today is be very quick to give you the high level of where we're at looking at each of the sites right now. Part of this information is also based upon a mapping program that we've conducted. We're looking at response times within a 4-minute radius of the fire station throughout the city, and then an 8-minute radius throughout the city. And the full report will be finished here in the next 2 weeks before Christmas, but we wanted to come just give you a preview of where we're at right now. And so what I'm going to do is go through each of the 5 sites at a very high level. I'll be happy to answer questions along the way, but I think you probably have other things in your agenda tonight besides me talking on for 2 hours. So I'm going to try and keep it out of the weeds, keep it at a higher level to provide you information, and then you can look forward to my detailed report here in the future. So as I mentioned, we looked at 5 sites, and those sites were located. Location number 1 was the corner of 12th and Broadway. Location number 2 was the corner of 4th and Low, sometimes commonly known as New Chicago. Location number 3 was the 300 block of West Briggs Street. That's the former DOT building site. Location number 4 is the existing fire station at 104 North 2nd Street. And location number 5 at the corner of Highland and Jefferson, which is the old helipad. And so in that packet of information that I pass out to you, that was actually our traffic response analysis that was done. So my commentary on the building side is going to also embellish what you're seeing there. So on the very first site that you notice, that's the corner of 12th and Broadway, behind the county jail over by the O'Reilly Auto Parts Center. Large site, sufficiently enough size to be able to do what you want to do. However, there are some existing challenges in terms of the topography. If you've been to that site, once you get behind O'Reilly Auto Parts, it really drops off quickly. We don't know if there's quite enough site space to fit a building on without having to necessarily bring in more land to accommodate that. You also have a fair amount of water runoff running through that, because that's kind of the drainway. So that's one kind of disadvantage to that site. You have some sewer that runs along north-south through that site that may impact your project. That location doesn't provide you good coverage throughout all of the city. Currently, right now, you have a very good ISO rating, and the number escapes me, Chief. You're at an ISO rating of 3, which means your insurance companies give you very favorable insurance coverage for residents and building owners in town. So we want to make sure wherever we locate the fire station keeps that ISO 3 rating. If possible, even increase it to go up to a 2. We want to make sure we don't select something that's going to get you out of response times that would necessarily cause the ISO rating to degrade you down to a lower level, which would have a negative impact upon property owners and building owners in town, because their insurance values would now reflect the fact that might no longer be within a 4-minute radius of the fire station response. So on that particular site, whenever we conducted a traffic study of each of the 5 sites, there was 2 numbers we were looking at: a 4-minute radius, which you'll see in pink. It's not really a radius, it's about how you travel down the streets. And then the green shows what an 8 minutes response time is. We looked at that with 2 additional factors. What would it be like with traffic conditions and non-traffic conditions? So traffic conditions were set for 5 o'clock on any given day of the week. you can imagine that evening traffic, you got a little bit more congestion, response times are slower. So at the first site, the corner of 12th and Broadway, what we notice on the maps is that anything north of the Maharishi and the Evergreen Cemetery area tends to not fall within that 4-minute travel time for response time. These are kind of just, when you squint at the map, you probably recognize street names more than I do because I don't live here, but that's kind of a general marker there on the north side. The northeast section of town doesn't necessarily get covered so well in that 4-minute radius, and the southeast doesn't really get much coverage from the intersection of South Madison and East Madison and South E Street. So, not a bad site overall, but in terms of use of the fire station and fire station response, maybe not the most ideal there. Second location was the corner of 4th and Low, which is over by the railroad tracks. One of the major disadvantages is you're right just past the railroad tracks, and so if you want to be able to do a response time to get to the southern part of the city, I consider the southern part of the city past the railroad tracks, you have to go down 2 blocks to get to the underpass that's currently in place. Response time that drops out of that 4-minute range from the site of 4th and Low, anything west of Walmart along Burlington Avenue is considered beyond that 4-minute radius. Anything north of Zimmerman Boulevard and Utopia Park tends to fall out of that radius. And so these are just trying to give you some ideas. When I say it's not covering parts of your town, I'm sure you know these locations, and you can get that visual in your mind. And if I'm getting into too much detail, Aaron, just let me know. And also on the southeast corner of the town, by the time you get to about East Madison and Maple Street, part of that corner, southeast corner of town, starts to get out of the 4-minute coverage. Now, one thing that I can tell you, when you look at the green on all these maps, the green was within the 8-minute response time. No matter what location you were in town, you're hitting that within 8 minutes. But in a fire scenario, with how fast fires develop, particularly as my experience being a volunteer firefighter for 14 years, you don't want to be getting to a fire scene at 8 minutes. You want to try and get there 4 minutes, even less, because by the time you start putting water on that fire, you're already starting to, amass amount of time there. Disadvantages on the 4th and Low site is it's a very hilly site. If you ever driven by there, part of it, it's more like this. That topography would make that a challenge in terms of how we would station a building onto that site, and be land acquisition cost involved there as well. We felt that was probably not potentially an ideal location at this point in time. Looking at site number 3, which was the former DOT building at 300 West Briggs. This particular building is not too far away from where your current fire station is located. So when you look and compare the response time analysis between site number 3, which is potentially the DOT building, compared to site number 4, your existing fire station, you're going to notice they're almost identical for the fact they're just 2 blocks apart, and they're both located on the south side of the railroad tracks. You get a better response time, it seems to be, to most of the southern part of the town when you're on the southern side of the railroad tracks. One of the advantages to this site is that it's the site itself is sufficient of use, covers the whole city with little change from your current, so less likely to have any negative impact on your ISO rating. There's less grade issues to deal with on this site compared to others. Some of the other sites that we have a lot of topography grade to need to be accomplished or challenged. This site would have less of that to be challenged. Disadvantages is that there's 2 buildings on the site. Potentially this would mean demolition of at least one building and a significant model of the other. Our final report will give our recommendations of which building we think would be the best suited, but the idea that you would maintain both buildings on the site and change one into the fire station is probably not feasible, because we're going to need to add on to the apparatus bay, which is the vehicle parking, onto either one of those 2 buildings, and you would probably run out a little bit of site there. One of the disadvantages is when you're dealing with some existing buildings, some things can come up you're not necessarily expecting. These two buildings designed for the Department of Transportation were not necessarily designed for use as a fire station. That does not mean it cannot be remodeled to accomplish that use. It's just one of those things that needs to be considered in the grander scheme of what you choose to do. And if I'm going too fast, please feel free to stop me. I just want to make sure I respect your time. Site number 4, which is the existing fire station. Location within the town is very good for your response times. However, that particular building is not even a building the city owns. It's my understanding you lease that from Jefferson County, so that's a lease agreement. And at the same time, you don't always have the freedom to do what you want to do in that building. Again, having been a firefighter for 14 years, walking through that building, I've been on 2 fire departments thus far, and I thought my last department, which was a rural fire department, had a very small station. I could not imagine how small the vehicle bay was for your fire department, where your large ladder truck backs into the fire station. The width of this podium, if this was the side of the fire truck, this is the side of the workbench. That's not really not a large amount of space when you're back in a vehicle that's 36 feet long, 8 feet wide, and you don't want to damage A, the building, or B, the vehicle. Safety parameters would ask for a little bit more space on either side of the vehicles, so you got better circulation, particularly when you think about the firemen and firefighters, trying to get into that vehicle. They want to do that safely. The challenge with the existing fire station building is it's landlocked. If I get my bearings correctly, to the east side is the alley. Am I correct, Chief, or is that the south? To the south is the alley. That's right on the property line. So if you wanted to make those vehicle bays a little bit wider to comply with, I would say, the more contemporary fire station design, we can't, because that's the alleyway, that's the property line. And so we're kind of landlocked there. You can't really move to the north to make the vehicle bays larger, because now you're starting to get into the existing building construction. This particular building was never designed for this kind of use. It's been made to make work for you. One of the major disadvantages is that your sleeping floor opens right up to the vehicle bays, and you don't have very good separation of, if you had a lot of exhaust within the vehicle bays, that's getting into your sleeping quarters. And so there's some safety concerns that need to be addressed there. In our report, you'll see that we took a very detailed look and made a very detailed architectural assessment of things that are wrong with the existing condition of that building. Things that could be fixed, but again, with an existing building, that could involve greater cost to you. But overall, it's a very flat site. It's in great location within the city, but dealing with the existing building might not be within the city's best interest of a long-term fire station solution. Finally, site number 5, the corner of Highland and Jefferson out at the helipad. This particular site, somewhat similar to the first site, kind of moves out of city center, and this goes out to the far east side of town. And so what happens here is on your response times, beyond 4 minutes, anything north of the Maharishi School and Evergreen Cemetery tends to go beyond that 4-minute mark. Anything west of High V on Burlington as a landmark tends to fall off of that 4-minute mark. And you think about it, there's still some significant amount of town that's west of High V there. And in the southwest corner of town, when you get to about the corner intersection of 7th Street and Harrison over by your Pence Elementary School, you start to lose some of that part of town in that 4-minute response area. That site is a very small site, which I think would prevent some challenges. Ideally, we'd like to be able to have a fire station that would have drive-through bays. Currently, the vehicles have to back into the station right now. Many fire stations are designed that way, but in practice, we're finding that with the damage that happens to both buildings and vehicles, to be able to give them a pull-through opportunity tends to be more advantageous, less likely to damage either one building or vehicle. And that could be very hampered on that very small site. And again, this corner of Highland and Jefferson also has a site with a significant amount of grade change in topography in the backside. Another negative side is that your senior center is right across the street. And the residents of that senior center might not appreciate the fact that the fire engine sirens have to go off when they run on their response. So again, that was kind of just a very quick, high-level step through of the 5 sites. We'll have our detailed report here completed and sent to city administration, the fire chief by Christmas time. I realize that might have been a lot in a short amount of time, but any general questions I can ask for anyone? Answer?
That's great.
Just one quick question.
Mm-hmm.
On these maps of the 4 and 8 minute response time, do you have any hard numbers like valuation or number of buildings that might be covered in each situation, or no? That,
In terms of
Other than just looking at
properties
it.
that could be affected in coverage and outside of coverage, the way the mapping software works is it's based upon addresses are not taken into account. Now, perhaps we could maybe look at it to try and give you a determination of, say, 60 homes are outside of coverage within 4 minutes. That would be a little bit beyond of what the scope of what we were doing, but
Sure.
that could be looked at if requested. Any other questions at all?
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you very
your
much
time.
for allowing me to come speak to you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Okay, so our next presenter will be Jason Henry of The Well. He's going to introduce The Well to us and tell us all about it. So we're excited to hear.
All right, you ready for me?
I am. Go
Well,
ahead.
Good evening. I'm Jason Henry. I'm a representative from The Well. We are actually putting that organization into Fairfield. We've been working on a project over by the hospital on Main Street. So we are thankful for this opportunity to get in front of you guys and kind of share what we're doing. Our organization focuses on helping people that are dealing with poverty in their life. Poverty can look many different ways to many people. We often think financial, but we see things around addiction, around the mental health, around lots of other things. So one of our goals as an organization is to partner with the community. So our plan is not to duplicate efforts that are here, but rather work inside of the community and partner with those organizations and hopefully make us all stronger, make our communities stronger. So we are, to give you just a little bit of history, we started in Pella about 10 years ago. Next year will be our 10-year anniversary. In Marion County, which is a county of about 40,000 people, we are actively serving over 3,000 clients right now. So we have a pretty large population of folks that we serve in that county. We are excited to be in Fairfield. Some of the programs that we will bring, we have a resource center where we really focus on real life skills and coaching and partnering with that person that's looking for assistance. We offer programs around things like addiction recovery and mental health and life skills and things like that. And then we also believe it's okay to have some social enterprises that help fund the organization. So we will be bringing a thrift store into the community. So the building that we purchased is the Foursquare Church on South Main. We have been in the process of renovating that really since September. From a timing standpoint, our goal is to have our store opened after the first of the year, and we'll do a very fast follow with the services that we offer. A couple things I wanted to share as I specifically think about the city and city council and some of the things that we do. I'll share a little bit of feedback we received from Knoxville, which is another community we have a well in, where we have partnered pretty closely with the city. One place that we have partnered is code enforcement inside of the city. So if somebody has a property that's in disrepair or something like that, there is generally something else going on inside of that situation, that family, whatever that unit might be. What the city will do is they will refer that family when the citation is placed, they will refer them to us. We will partner with them. We have an organization, a program that we have called ACTS, where we actually go out into the community and make improvements. So it could be clean up a yard, could be repair a fence, could be do those types of things. So we're hopeful that kind of partnership will help in the community. And then the second story I wanted to share was we have a young man in Knoxville that we have been serving that deals with addiction, deals with mental health issues, and we have really been partnering with him since we put the organization in Knoxville. And one day in our office, the police showed up at our office, right? Nobody wants the police to show up at their office. And we thought, what is going on? And what they showed up for was they showed up to thank us for playing a part in his life. And they said, we can tell when he is engaged with you because we do not see him as we have in the past. So we're excited to be here. We just want to partner with the community, and we're looking forward to getting boots on the ground here and getting our programs and stuff kicked off. We do have, Eden brought some, so I'll introduce a couple of people. Eden does our marketing communication efforts as an organization. She has brought some folders for each of you that explain who we are and what we do and give a little background on that. And then Sandy Blom. Sandy is also from our organization. Sandy is leading the efforts here on the ground to get things ramped up. Like I said, we're working on getting the building set. We're hoping to have stuff opened up and moving after the first of the year. We are looking at staffing right now, so we will probably hire somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 people in the next really from now until probably 3 to 6 months out. And we're looking for volunteers as well. So you'll start seeing a lot of push in media things and stuff like that to get people involved in our organization. So, is there any questions or comments or anything like that that I can answer?
One question.
Yes.
For your programs to help people who are struggling with addiction, recovery, mental health, how are your staff trained
Yep.
in that area?
Yep. So our staff is really quite diverse. We've got staff that are degreed in social work. We've got a lawyer on our staff. We equip them through the training that is provided through whatever that organization, their materials that we are using. We actually prefer to do more partnering with resources, so we recently partnered with an organization focused on addiction recovery that is all they do. At some point in time, that organization would reside here as well. So we do a lot through partnering and a lot through just training and equipping of our staff. I don't know if that's answering your
Yeah, I think so.
your question.
But we do have a lot of mental health resources in the community.
Yep.
I think that would be wonderful,
Yeah, and let me say this. So we'll basically have a leader in both sides of our organization here. So we have this retail side that's our social enterprise, and then we have the services side that we offer. Once we have that services director hired, the first thing they will do is go out in the community to understand all of the resources that are there. When we scoped coming to Fairfield, it was really initiated from Cornerstone Community Well that was in town here. I met that group probably 5 or 6 years ago, and they asked if we would just come over and kind of take over what they're doing, and then obviously add what we are doing as well. We went out in the community and we interviewed probably 50 different organizations. We talked to social service agencies, we talked to churches, businesses, we talked to folks from the city, just to try to understand where we want to land here. Like I said, our goal is always partner with the resources that are here. We don't want to redo something. We don't want to do something that's already being done. We certainly have this belief that 1 + 1 can equal 3, right? If we're working together.
So ultimately, what would be the size of your staff, both volunteer and paid staff?
Yeah, so just to give you some perspective, our organization that we have in Pella and Knoxville, we have about 600 volunteers between those two communities, and we have about 65 or 70 staff. Let me add one more thing on that I didn't mention. We also have a work program as an organization. So we've gone out in Pella in particular, and we've worked with the local manufacturers to give us work. We then, in turn, we hire the people that we serve, to do that work with the long-term goal of equipping them to go back out and work in those companies. So so that's a big piece of what our staffing number is. We have about 20, 25 clients that are engaged in what we do from a programming standpoint, from a staff standpoint.
So if you could explain to me again, what kind of work would the paid staff be doing?
Running our retail store, doing our counseling, our services, all of those things.
What's the source of the funding for the well?
Comes from our social enterprise, from our retail operations that we have. So our goal is to get to the point where we are 100% self-sufficient. We obviously need donations to grow and to do other things, but by and large, most of our funding is coming through the social enterprise work that we do. And when we look at Fairfield and all of our sites, those sites have to operate on their own. We don't want to subsidize it from another site. We want it to financially stand on its own. Sorry, go ahead.
When you look at funding, do you ever seek funding from other organizations within the city, for example?
We do. We certainly have. We get donations from grants and other funding. We have not done a lot at the city level. Doesn't mean we're not open to that. We've done a little bit through the state, but not a ton. Most of our donations are coming from private funding.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you here, and we wish you a lot of luck to get started. And yeah, when are you going to be ready for donations? Do you have a date yet?
That may be the most popular question I get.
Right? Because my garage is ready for you.
It will likely be after the first of the year. We are honestly, we're pretty close on having the retail stuff ready. There's a little bit of painting we have to do, and then we've got to get set up. Our biggest obstacle right now is getting staff in place and getting volunteers in place. So we're working pretty diligently to ramp that up.
Great. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you so
coming
much.
tonight.
Sure
Really
appreciate
appreciate it. All righty, so we're going to move forward to resolution, action items, and ordinances. The first item is we're going to do a public hearing concerning the site location for the project, which may require acquisition of agriculture property. This has to do with the Highway 1 South upgrade. Aaron, do you want to say anything before we open the public hearing?
This is just the going forward with our the project on Highway 1. We are going to look at, or with this resolution, we need to decide whether or not we're going to have Highway or South Junction Road connected to Libertyville Road or have it stop. The city's recommendation is to connect South Junction Road to Libertyville Road. That way we have Court Street and Libertyville Road as accesses to like Pilot Grove Bank and stuff like that. So I think I've got Nathan Hardesty on the line from Shive Hattery, and he or I will be able to answer or help with any questions that arise from the public hearing.
Okay. Before I open the public hearing, I would also just like to mention that we have had apparently several calls to Melanie regarding trails and the sidewalk and who's responsible for that and maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. So that topic of discussion is not going to be discussed tonight. That will come later in the project. So just so you know, so you have comments about that, keep them very short. Also, when you come to the podium, please give us your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes. If someone has already given the same opinion or statement, there's no reason to repeat it. So we ask that just one opinion or one statement in a particular subject be discussed. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. It's been a while since we've seen people here. So with that, I will open the public hearing. And again, please state your name and your address. And does someone want to go first? Thank you.
Someone's got to do it, right?
That's right.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. My name is Donna Krantz, and I am a resident of the Lincoln Court condo neighborhood. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our neighborhood. It's mostly made up of seniors that are downsizing or new people moving into the community. We have become a real neighborhood. We have summer picnic at the church area. Every year, a resident hosts a Christmas party. We socialize. We take care of each other. It's a safe place to live. It's a quiet place to live. I'd like to address how closing Junction and rerouting all commercial and residential traffic to Court would negatively impact our neighborhood. Everyone from Lincoln Court condo neighborhood has signed our petition to leave Junction open, except for one person that we couldn't reach. Can Court safely accommodate commercial traffic? Junction is approximately 10 feet wider than Court. There is also no parking on Junction, leaving the full width available for traffic. The traffic doesn't just consist of standard family-type vehicles, but it also has trucks with trailers, tractor trailers, farm implements, hay balers, landscape equipment, and more. We don't feel that Court could safely have two large vehicles traveling in opposite directions. Residents also need parking, which would make it even more difficult. You shouldn't take away street parking from residents on Court to try to accommodate vehicle traffic. There would be nowhere for guests to park. The neighborhood is zoned light residential, so should commercial vehicles even be going through a light residential neighborhood? We don't have sidewalks. We have to walk down the street daily to get our mail at a central box. We also walk our dogs and ride our bikes on these streets. The amount and the size of vehicles would make walking unsafe. Amount of traffic. Currently, there are 4 families that live on Court. Court has a minimal amount of traffic. After Libertyville is extended and connected to Court, it will increase traffic substantially. Vehicles are consistently accessing the bank, the ATM, and the church. We propose that leaving Junction open with signage for the bank and church access, along with no trucks allowed signage for Court, would reduce the traffic, and we would still have a safe and quiet neighborhood. We believe closing Junction would make our safe neighborhood less quiet and less safe.
Great.
Let me refer to the Fairfield Forever Plan that you released in February of this year. Your residential goal is to increase and support housing development, and an economic development goal is explore new areas of growth and development around Fairfield, encouraging additional residential, commercial, and industrial development. There are currently lots in our neighborhood that are for sale for development. Developers want to invest in desirable properties. Routing commercial traffic down Court would make it less desirable for new families. Nobody wants to live on a busy street. I don't think you would be meeting your objective of encouraging new residential development by closing Junction. Instead, you would be working against your own goals. It would also make current properties less desirable, decreasing our property values. These homes are just a few years old. We've invested in the development of our properties, assuming they would, at a minimum, keep their value over time, not lose value in just a few short years. I've addressed the residential aspect, and I can't speak to how much effect it would have on the bank or the church, but I can't believe that closing the only direct access to someone's business would have a positive effect. We're talking about 2 companies that have invested in their locations. Both have brought value to our community. Your objective states encourage development. That would hinder them. In closing, I would like to remind everyone that citizens of Fairfield voted for you because they want you to help residents and businesses. Closing Junction doesn't do anything to help the community. Not one thing. It doesn't do anything to help the businesses that are accessed by Junction. It doesn't help developers develop and sell residential buildings. And it doesn't do anything to help the families that already live there. Please vote to keep Junction open and keep our neighborhood a great location to live.
Great, thank you, Donna. Is there someone else that would like to give a different view?
Not really a different view. Just,
Okay.
Ryan Swanson with Pilot Grove Savings Bank. Just something our president wanted me to say. We appreciate the opportunity to provide input into the decision regarding access. We are happy to have a bank located in Fairfield. A big factor in choosing this site was a fairly direct access off Highway 1. It is our hope you maintain our access via South Junction Road as it is and as was intended when we made the significant financial investment to build the bank there.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So actually,
Say
Kerry
your name,
Bell,
please, and your address.
1706 South Main Street.
Thank you.
And first I'd like to know, what is the planned time of starting this project?
The construction project is going to start in 2023 at this point because it got pushed back from the DOT funding.
Okay. And how long do you think the project would take to be completed?
Nathan, how long will the project take to be completed?
Should take an entire construction season to do the vast majority of the work, so a March to November time frame. The next spring, there potentially could be some grass seed and some of those things that need touched up. But the main part of the project would take a full year in construction, full season.
Thank you. So the concern that I have is why 3 lanes coming north? I get that you're expecting to have increased, businesses, residential being built, but I don't see the value or the need to be making that 3-lane. And the effect that it has on our property is we lose all of our both sound, from the road and our privacy, because all of our trees that are across the front would disappear. The other concern I have with the amount they're taking out is we have a huge maple tree in the front, and I suspect that the east side of the roots of that tree would be disrupted in a way that would make that, basically damage that tree. So I can see the value of a sidewalk, but I just don't see the need to have it be so wide that we lose our access of our front property. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
I'm Colleen Bell. I just wanted to add to that I have a really lot of edible landscaping that will be completely destroyed in that area. I have pawpaw trees that take 12 to 15 years to grow, to produce, and they're 12 years old. I've got aronia bushes and serviceberry bushes. I've got peach trees and I put them 20 feet from the road so they'd be safe. And now you need 30 feet. So I think that we need to take into account more than just the access, the road. We need to take into account the long-term beauty of the community and the food value. And these are things that are too big to be transplanted and moved. They're established. And I also have a lot of prairie plants in there that are good for the watershed. So I hope you can take that into account too. And I really don't think we don't have that much traffic there, and I don't see it. I don't really think that we need the roundabout. I don't know, did I miss the conversation about how did this come about? When I saw it in the paper, that was the first time I heard about it. Have you been talking about this for a long time?
I saw the design before I was on the council in 2010. This was being discussed.
Sorry?
This was being discussed before 2010. This is a 10-year design.
We actually had a public hearing last year,
Oh,
I want to say in January, where we discussed roundabout, traffic light, leave it as it was. Nathan, do you remember when that public hearing was?
I don't remember exactly when that was. It may have been even November of 2019. It's been approximately a year, though. I know it was before the COVID pandemic. I was there in person and gave probably a 30-minute presentation to council about all the different parts of the project that could be incorporated, including the Libertyville Road portion as well. And then there's been extensive discussion with the DOT over the last probably 2 years about all the options for the corridor as well. And, in some cases, the city's not the only decider here, since this is a state highway, and the state DOT is actually funding the project.
And the other part of that, the permanent easement for the roadway is it's 7 feet on each side? Is that right? Or what is it?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, the existing right-of-way that is for the road is 66 feet wide. That's planned to be widened to 80 feet. So that 14 feet additional will come from 7 feet on either side. That is the permanent right-of-way. So inside of that will be the road, the sidewalk, the trail, storm sewer, and other utilities, water main. And then outside of that, there are some temporary easements to make sure we can accommodate construction equipment, moving of materials, and some of the grading that has to happen outside of that as well.
Okay.
And the center lane is
Okay.
total turning lane, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah?
If I may add, it's that piece that is where we lose the trees and the things that we have in front. I get the actual construction when it's finished, but if, finding a way to replace those trees may be either very expensive or impossible.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I just have one question.
Please come to the podium, Ginger.
Ginger Belalove from, do you want the address?
Address, please.
1600 South Main. Where does the 7 feet begin? From the roadway or the gravel of the side of the road, or where does that begin?
Could Jason bring up the cross-section? One of the,
I don't think the answer, the surveyor's probably gonna have to answer that question.
Okay.
Exactly where the right-of-way butts to your property and how much that 7 feet is.
Okay.
I don't think we can see it exactly on the map.
It's gonna be, depending, that 7 feet gets kind of shifted as you go, but for the most part, it's gonna be 7 feet wider than what the city right-of-way is right now. So the 66 feet, if you were to measure 33 feet from the center line, that would be where the right-of-way is currently. So then you just add another 7 feet to that. I wouldn't recommend doing it. I don't want you to get run over by somebody.
Don't measure.
Just rough idea, that's where it
I
would be.
appreciate that, thank you.
and that 7 feet's gonna include the trail and the sidewalk parts of it.
Correct.
My name is Brian Hunger. I work out at Jefferson County Health Center. And my just comments are really geared more to the construction phase than it is actually the project and the completion. From a healthcare health center standpoint, I don't have any real concerns with the project. But I do think there's some concern regarding the ambulance access into town. And just want to make sure that as we're planning the project that there is 2 lanes access on Main Highway 1. And I don't know if that is the case or not. But
Well, I can answer it, but I'm actually, Nathan, did you hear the question?
Was it ambulance access in 2 lanes?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so the project is planned to have 2 lanes open, one northbound, one southbound at all times. That was a requirement of the DOT as part of this being a state highway, but as you mentioned, it's also critical for just all public safety, including police, fire, and of course ambulance services as well.
perfect. The second was, I know it's a DOT in the state, and so I don't know how much advocating we can do. But if there's a way to slow down the speed limit through the underpass of 34 so that the speed limit in front of the hospital's main entrance is less than 50 miles an hour, we would really appreciate that. And I know it includes DOT in the state, but I don't know if there's already plans for that.
Do you want to talk about the speed limit there, or what the design of the turnaround is there, Nathan? Why that would probably benefit that request? He's one, did you hear that?
I think I caught most of it. You're talking about actually the speed limit, even down by 34 in front of the hospital entrance there.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. So I'll start at Libertyville Road. One of the reasons that we planned a roundabout there instead of a traffic signal, and that we spoke to council about, it would have even been at that meeting a year ago, is that the roundabout itself, you have to slow down to go through it, where a traffic signal that's still a green light, obviously you can run through that at speed. So and that was just a concern on the whole corridor. It was trying to slow traffic down as they enter town here on the south side. We think that that roundabout will slow traffic down from there to the north, and even southbound traffic as it comes southbound through there, headed out of town, will also have to be slowed to come through the roundabout. Now down at 34 itself, the city has even less control down there, and the way the state looks at speed limits is they do a speed study, and then they will set the speed limit typically at 85%, 85th percentile of what the speeds actually are. That's considered how they do that. And if they go out and do a speed study and they don't get speeds that are lower than that, they generally do not consider lowering the speed limit. I know they've done that speed study out here 2 or 3 times in the last 10 or 12 years. Melanie, if she was here, would know the exact answers on that. But I know the DOT's looked at it at the city's request, and they haven't opted to lower it right at 34. But I do think the roundabout itself will lower it in the whole area. The effect it'll have right at 34, or the hospital entrance, might be lower than it would north of the roundabout, but hopefully it does improve some. And if it does improve, the state can look at the speeds that are out there again by doing another speed study and potentially lower the speed limit at that time.
Okay, I can tell you from our perspective that the speed limit is too fast, and so whether people drive it or not, it's too fast for our comfort level of entering the hospital. Plus, right across the road is the exit and the entrance onto 34, and that can be very confusing, especially if you're trying to come out for who's going and who's not. So if there's ways that we can advocate for that, I would strongly encourage to advocate. I know heading south, they're heading over to Keosauqua, and it's like 50 miles an hour. So as soon as you get past Libertyville Road, they're gone. And it just makes, if there's options that we can to advocate for that, I'd really appreciate it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Anyone else? Can you speak to the two-way versus three-way?
Nathan, can you talk about
I shouldn't
the
say
two-way
three-way, but the two-way and a turning lane?
compared to the 3-lane?
Sure. So the existing road out there is a 2-lane, obviously 1 lane in each direction. The proposed road is a 3-lane section, so there's a 2-way left turn lane in the middle. Pretty common. I think Burlington is the same way through town. Very similar. So the reason for that is just the traffic on the corridor. You know, especially on the east side, there's some commercial properties. They generate some turning traffic in and out. Other places like Casey's has some turning traffic in there that hopefully we can accommodate outside of the through lanes. And it's really just a safety thing. I think the statistic is when you put a 3rd lane on a 2-lane road like this, you can have a reduction in crashes of about 40%. A lot of those, it just gets rid of rear-end crashes, makes drivers less impatient. We've seen other places where on a 2-lane road, if someone stopped to make a right, people will pass them in the oncoming lane. And in an urban area like this, that's really not very safe. So that's the reason for the 3rd lane in the middle. It's really a safety concern.
So he's saying that the 2 lanes with the center turning lane is approximately 40% reduction in traffic accidents, so it's safer. So that's why they're proposing this 2-lane with a turning lane. Carrie, go ahead.
So I've lived there for more than 10 years. I'm not aware of any accidents happening in that stretch. Maybe there was one down at the Liberty Junction, and I could see the roundabout with that. But the rest of that, I don't ever remember seeing accidents in that area. So, and And I don't see that the traffic would increase enough, especially with the roundabout lowering the speed, that, we don't have really a rush hour deal. So exiting and, our driveway, entering and leaving, I don't see any problem with keeping it at 2 lanes. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
What did you want to look at, Michael? Cross-section. Sure.
You got the roundabout there.
Do the cross-section one. So the project actually took some money that the city had won years back to put in a trail on one side because it's very non-pedestrian and bike-friendly to try to go south of Fillmore. It's actually really scary. I walked it once. It's kind of terrifying. So this project now includes this nice 10-foot paved trail on one side and then a 6-foot sidewalk, 5-foot sidewalk on the other. So that's the benefit.
I see the value of the sidewalk, especially if the baseball diamond gets opened up.
Carrie, come to the podium, please. Sorry. But people can't hear you that are streaming.
Right. I see the value of the sidewalk, especially with the idea that when the baseball season opens up, kids are going to be walking from there to Casey's. I just don't see the value of basically 3 lanes.
Thank you. More, Michael?
Yeah, it's like Nathan said, it's the DOT's highway. They set the speed limits. They tell us what speed we have to make our ordinance. We have to make our ordinance match whatever they tell us. They set the traffic light signals. So when people complain that you get stuck in traffic, we don't have jurisdiction. It's their highway. So they decided based on their data, they wanted to spend millions of dollars of their money doing this. And so we're kind of along for the ride. But we could have a little bit of say in some of the design and such. And so I think the project is, I don't know if we could stop it if we wanted to be honest.
Is Chief Thomas still out in the hallway? Chief Thomas, can you speak to accidents between Fillmore and Libertyville? I know you're not going to have numbers in front of you, but just like from your experience, Fillmore to Libertyville, school hours, out of school hours, ball tournaments, things like that.
Correct. I can remember, and keep in mind I'm an old guy, I can remember at least 2 to 3 serious injury accidents at, especially Main and Fillmore, and then one related to that just north with the school stop sign or rear end type accident.
Okay. Have we had any down at the Casey's intersection?
Yeah, yes.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem at all. It gets kind of confusing there because it's half city, half county. But we have had a lot of complaints, and I think not as serious, but just north of the JCHC entrance, we had a pretty serious accidents that ended up in that yard there. Yeah.
I know there's been a couple rear ends too where people are heading south, turning into Southgate, and they're coming up behind them at a high speed. So
Yes.
I know there's been at least 2 that I know of in the last year. Yeah.
We've had with the higher speed and the higher traffic, we've had several accidents. And what is the higher speed? It's usually more injuries, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
Is there any more comments?
I would say too, now is not a really good time to look at the traffic out there because traffic is greatly reduced all over, and especially there, especially since they're not in school full time right now either. But if you go back 2 years and you look at, if you're crossing Fillmore and you look down South Main at 7:45 in the morning, traffic is backed up at that stop sign, 20 cars easy in the morning. So this will alleviate a lot of that.
Okay, again, any more comments? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing, and then we will move on to the resolution. So this is the site selection, choosing which design that you want, with or without South Junction.
Madam Mayor, can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
The city would like to recommend that we have the connection with South Junction Road within the construction project. After having conversations with neighborhood builders, area residents, Pilot Grove, we think that's probably the best way to go is to have that connection there also.
Is there a picture of that in one of our options?
Yes.
We had it pulled up for a while.
Okay.
Katie.
It would be, yeah.
Highway
the
1 construction.
Highway 1 Reconstruction roundabout,
That's
that
the
one.
That-
There it is.
Okay, so it's just that little thing.
Katie.
Okay,
There
got
it
it.
is.
All right, thanks.
Do you have anything to add to that, Nathan?
What is that, Aaron? I missed some of that, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We're going to move to the site selection resolution. The city's going to make the recommendation to add the connection to South Junction Road for this motion. Do you have anything else for that, or you good?
The only thing I'd add is, we did study it both ways with South Junction Road connected and not connected, and we had the DOT take a look at it, and they had a third party look at it, and they say the roundabout will operate. We say, and that third party will say the roundabout will operate in either condition. So I think it can be done either direction from an engineering standpoint.
And I did talk to our city engineer about this, and the idea was by leaving this open, we're not routing all the traffic to the next street over, which is Court, which is a residential street.
I'm going to let you go. I think we'll be good.
So this keeps the flow of traffic to the church and the bank on Junction Road instead of sending it all down and back Court, which would be maybe not pedestrian friendly or not friendly to a residence.
Neighborhood friendly.
Yeah, neighborhood type area. I'll make a motion to approve this design with the connection to South Junction Road.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Hallie, second by Flournoy to approve this with Junction Road open. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Hallie,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Okay, the next resolution, consideration of resolution establishing just compensation value prior to start of negotiations. Is Mike here?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Mike Adams, Senior Project Manager for JCG Land Services. Once we receive the exhibits from the engineers, we'll spend some time looking at all the properties, determine which parcels are a little bit more complicated than others. We'll order appraisals and have those appraisals reviewed. I think you guys have approved CRM and Doug Hattery for that process. We'll get some appraisals done. We'll get some estimates of land value from those, and we'll probably do compensation estimates on some of the less complicated acquisitions. And I believe we'll probably have all of those approved through you before we start the acquisition process. I think that's pretty much how we'll do it. I think some of you guys might remember me. I've been hanging around since long before step one. So do you have any questions about that?
I'm sorry, when did you say the timetable is?
Well, we need exhibits before we can start that appraisal process. We need to know exactly what's going to be taken on each parcel. The design maps don't give the appraisers enough information to make that valuation. So for some of you that are here, you may be hearing from an appraiser at some point. They have to give you an opportunity to meet with them when they do the appraisal.
Mike, can you speak to, especially since you've been around so long and done so much of this for us, situations in the past where we have had to move hedgerows, trees, small fences, speak to some of the concerns that have been voiced with that. We've moved some pretty significant greenery.
Correct.
Can you kind of speak to the process of moving those?
Well, and the appraisal will identify the value of those shrubs and trees to the property. A tree isn't worth $10,000, no matter how big it is. The Iowa code requires us to replace a tree with a tree. Now, typically, an appraiser will give a value and he'll talk to some nurseries. If we're taking a tree, how big of a tree can we actually replace that tree with, and the cost to replace the tree. So if you're looking at a large tree that you might lose, the appraiser's probably going to give you somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $600. You can buy a $300 tree and have it planted, and that replaces that tree. But then the appraisal will more than likely indicate some value to the property that tree had, and there'll be a value of the remainder property. Sometimes there's some additional compensation for that. Just depends on the situation, and in each situation is completely different from another. But if there's a lot of, I hear the argument a lot of times, well, that tree's worth $10,000. Well, if we could replant a 100-year-old tree, we would, but we can't. So the state and the Uniform Commercial Code don't really require that we replace that tree with a reasonable tree.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then that,
Connie, if we have questions, is there a phone number that we can talk with you?
I can answer right now very general, very generic questions.
Yes, since
At
it's not a
some
public
point-
hearing,
It's,
we'll make sure that you get contact info.
I can leave you a business card.
Great,
But
thank
until
you.
we get the exhibits and we come, and I'll actually come out and physically look at your property to determine which ones I think are complicated enough to let an appraiser do.
My question right now can be taken offline later.
Yeah, great, thank you very much. All right, are there any other questions from council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
Just one
Oh,
comment.
go ahead.
Once we go into this land negotiation process, we've hired JCG to do the process. So if somebody contacts you, don't tell them, hey, I'll take care of this or anything like that. Your job will be to say, hey, here's the phone number to JCG, or contact Aaron at the city office to get the number for JCG. I can't talk about it, or you shouldn't talk about it. We're hiring them to do the job, so let them do the job, is what I'm recommending and asking.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron. John, go ahead.
I'll add one thing. We've worked with Mike since 2015 at least, I'm sure, but you have two standing resolutions right now that have to do with just compensation, and for values where the amount of the taking is believed to be less than $10,000, you grant that authority to your city administrator and the person from JCG that's working with this to make reasonable offers consistent with your resolution about just compensation. So you'll be asked to consider a just compensation resolution after what he says about the exhibits and the determination is made as far as the extent of the takings. I suspect that there are going to be some big takings, and then there'll be some smaller ones, and they'll fit into that under $10,000 just compensation resolution. You have to decide if you want to do that too, and that'll come out of some of the process that's still going on with the engineering.
I'm gonna stop you just for a second. That number's been changed to $25,000 now?
Okay, I know it has, but they
Yeah.
haven't got a resolution on
Oh,
that
they've
for
got a resolution.
25,000
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
They'll have to
And
decide
I
if they
think
want
most
to
of
do
these are
that.
gonna be in that neighborhood probably. It just depends on what the land's worth.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that's good.
Okay, anything else, Aaron?
Nope.
Okay, now we'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the resolution and establishing just compensation.
Moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Great, thank you. That was approved unanimously. Next action item is to set a public hearing for Monday, January 11th, 2021, regarding reconstruction of Merrill and Carpenter. Is Matt here? Yes. Okay.
Did I scare you all away? Yeah. Thank you, council. What we have tonight is for the reconstruction of Merrill and Carpenter Street. The project consists of Carpenter Street, approximately 400 feet to the west from Highway 1, and then Merrill, Carpenter is 600 feet, and Merrill is approximately 400 feet from Highway 1 to the west. With this project, we will also be updating the pedestrian improvements across Highway 1. We'll be adding some crosswalks on Highway 1 where the curve is that goes to the north. We're currently showing two different bid options similar to what we've done in the past. We have a 7-inch PCC reconstruction as well as an 8-inch HMA option that will be bid in alternates. We are estimating that the PCC estimate is $328,000 and the HMA option is $369,000. We're currently showing the public hearing to be at your next council meeting. We'll have a bid opening July 21st, as well as consideration at your next council meeting in January. So with that, I'd open to any comments or questions we have.
So the bid opening is in July?
I'm sorry, January.
Okay. That
January
makes more sense.
21st, yes.
I thought I just made that up in my mind. Thank you for asking that question.
And we do have a completion date for October of next year. So that would give them the whole spring, summer, and fall construction season to get the projects going. We are requiring, since there's limited access on Carpenter and Merrill, that they have to get one project completely finished before they jump to the other one.
Motion to approve public hearing for January 11th.
Second.
Okay, moved by Anderson, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. Next action item, consideration of change order number 36 on the wastewater treatment plant. This is just an extension, basically, of a month. They need the extension due to COVID and people not working.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Anderson, second by Toohill. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Anderson?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. The next action item is consideration of change order number 4 for the wastewater step 2 project. This has to do with an extension on Forest Drive and the cost of $18,920.50.
It's extension of the storm sewer, so that's what it is.
Is that why they've had it torn up down there at the end of the forest?
Yes.
They've been doing some exploratory excavation, trying to figure out, there's 2 storm sewers in that area. Originally, it was thought that one of them was just abandoned, but after doing digging and televising, they found that they were both active. So this change order essentially extends those pipes each approximately 70 feet, and it brings in a bunch of fill. Right now, it really takes off on the north end of Forest there. It really drops down to the creek, and this would fill that in to make it a little more appeasing, so to speak, from the road.
I move we approve change order number 4 for step 2.
Second.
Second it.
Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Did Rasmussen second that?
Well, I heard
Or Gandy?
Gandy.
I'm sorry.
I heard Gandy first.
Sorry. I wanted to make sure I got that right. Okay, Flournoy?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Rasmussen?
Yes.
Hallie?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. The next is an ordinance. It's the first reading. This is adding the 4 condos down at Lincoln Court to the TIF ordinance, so we can collect the increment to pay for the Court Street paving down there. Anything else you want to add there, Aaron?
Nope, you said it perfectly.
So I'll take a motion to,
For the existing Court Street, this is-
Yeah, down there in neighborhood, down where Neighborhood Builders is.
Yep.
The condo that's on Court Street, or on the north part, the street going north and south, that area has not, it's in an urban renewal area, but we haven't added it to the ordinance so that we can collect the increment there. So we need to add it to the ordinance so that we can start collecting the increment for for those properties.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Hallie, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Now, please call the roll.
Hallie,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Under the mayor's report, I have 2 board appointments. The Arbor Committee, Laura McCormick, and she's been involved, with different things around the community with trees and plants, and she'll be a great addition. So, and then also on the Civil Service Commission, Brad Johnson. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Brad for his years of service on this commission. We really appreciate him serving. And will be moving out of town, so he has sent in a resignation. And Pat Doyle has agreed to serve out his last 3 years, and we really appreciate Pat stepping up. And so I'd like to approve those 2 board appointments.
Motion to approve board appointments.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Second.
Gandy. Moved by Gandy, second by Toohill. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Hallie,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Rasmussen,
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
I was, a couple weeks ago, sent an email from a company called Bird, and what they do is they bring in electric scooters into your community. I liken it similar to the Yellow Bike program on campus. They're scooters that are placed around the community in what they call nests. So it's a place where you can go rent the scooter. You do it with an app. It costs just a few dollars to rent the scooter. You take it wherever you need to, and then bring it back to a nest area. They partner with someone in the community to help run the business. And that person or business here helps keep the scooters up and running with maintenance. They pick up scooters from low user locations. And it's amazing. They said they can really tell a lot by, the internet, where these scooters are, what kind of maintenance they need, how low their battery is. And they like to get the blessing from the city to do this program. And they're generally treated as bicycles. However, some cities apparently have had to tweak ordinances, so I haven't gone down that road to really look at that and see if there would be anything we need there. But again, they would like to get started in the spring, but they want the city's blessing. So what I would like to do is refer this to the Public Safety Committee to look at it. They have I've got basically three documents. What is it? And how does it work? And then they also have a memorandum of understanding between the company and the city, and certainly we'd want John to look at this because it's talking about holding the city harmless and et cetera. So if you guys are open to it, I kind of like the concept. I think it would be well received in Fairfield. The electric scooters, they are stand-up scooters. And so if you're open to it, I'd like to refer it to your committee to look at and see if there's any ordinance change we would need and see if you want to move forward.
Move we refer to public safety.
Okay?
Second.
Moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. To move it to public safety. Any other discussion?
Doesn't the mayor have a public scooter or a scooter of some type?
I do.
Yeah.
Mine's a sit-down.
Oh.
Yep, but I have a little electric scooter, and it's fun. So, and I've seen, when I traveled last year, I saw in some major cities these electric scooters.
Cedar Rapids has them.
Do they?
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
they're getting maybe one of the quad cities over there, too, coming soon. Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign? Okay, thank you. So I will email you, Katie. Actually, I'll give you this too.
Okay.
But I have this all on an email.
Okay.
So then I'll send it to you, and then you can send it to the members. Or I can
good.
send it to everybody, I guess. Okay, great. One thing, leaf burning is over, just to make sure the community knows. I did see some leaf burning going on the 1st of December a week ago. So just know that that's outside our ordinance now. The police policies have all now been reviewed by our department, and Rebecca has them out on our website. So anyone now can go out there and see those policies. Rebecca, do we have it at the library yet, though? Not yet, correct? No. Okay. Hopefully soon. So with that in mind, the police chief and I are tentatively planning on January 9th at 9 a.m. to do a town hall or a fireside chat, whatever you want to call it. And my guess is we'll still be doing virtual, but if we can find a big room, maybe we could have a certain number of people in person. Just to have the community open up and be able to talk with the chief and ask questions, et cetera. So that is tentatively planned for January 9th at 9 a.m.
What day is that?
That's a Saturday. So we'll let you know for sure, but that's a tentative date at this point. Okay, so that's all I have. John?
Yes. We're still working on step 2 easements, even though we're well into step 2 construction, and we thought we had all the resolutions done. Every person that signs an easement with the city, where it is treated as a involuntary taking under 6B, which is what we do when we buy somebody's property that we take, or we take an easement, they have a right for 5 years under the statute to come back to us if there's something that wasn't considered in the negotiation that gave rise to paying them for the temporary or permanent easement. And this is where sometimes we run into things like a culvert that's knocked out, a driveway that's damaged, shrubs, foliage, privacy blinds, trees comes up. We've had one of those come up in the last couple of months. The individual did settle with us on permanent and temporary easement. We had a resolution approving that, and we paid him about a year ago on those matters, but then the contractors came in and putting it simply, they wiped out 36 of his trees. And they weren't all specimens that were particularly marvelous trees. We're not talking about tall, straight walnut trees that are worth thousands. We're talking about things in a fence line. But there were some trees that were planted by the prior owner to this individual that he sought out and found out what kind of trees they were and so forth. So we've been negotiating with him. I wanted to get this on to talk about it in closed session, but I don't think it's such a controversial issue that we can't talk about it here in open session. So my report tonight is to you tonight is that an individual named Glenn Corica is willing to settle his issues with the 36 trees with us for the cost, which I have been into with the city engineer, of $100 a tree times 36 trees, and some accessorizing for those trees, which amounts to some nutrient bagged product and so forth to help with the planting of those trees. And he's willing basically to do all of this for another $600 on top of the 36 trees. So bringing to you a proposal to settle the tree issue after the fact under the statute that reflects this right he has under 6B. for a total of $4,200. I'll bring you a resolution in January on this, but I want to try to get him to commit to this in writing, assuming you're willing to allow me to commit that price to him. And at the same time, the city engineer is in the process of negotiating with him about another sliver of land next to what we've already paid him for, and she feels this would probably keep the spirit of goodwill alive if we get this resolved without too much argument. I've already determined with her that he can get trees of the nature of what was in the fence line, probably for around $100 a bald tree that's not too big from our local nursery, and I would expect that would be comparable at other nurseries. These won't be huge trees, but it will be something that satisfies him as far as putting back up something that will be in a few years privacy again for him. So that's my ask, is that you allow me to do this. I will bring you back a resolution that is consistent with this, if you'll allow me to agree with him to do that,
Need a motion for this?
please.
So I move that we allow John to spend or commit the $4,200 as he described.
All right.
Second?
Moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham. Yes. Hallie,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
That's it for you? Okay. Property committee.
Property met prior to this, and we had a very interesting discussion and a very interesting meeting. And I guess I can only share with you the fact that we did have Larry Paget come and talk with us regarding the proposal that the Walton Club would like to discuss, I guess, additionally with the city, because, of course, the club is concerned about what's the, I guess I would say, what's the next step that they're doing. Of course, the city owns the land, and so there's a big question, because it's not like you can just decide to disband the clubhouse and take it down, because it involves city property. And so, as I say, he came to us with the proposal, and so I think now, I would just say at this point, we have sort of said it's going to need further discussion, and John was with us in terms of what the process would be if we were to actually move forward with this project. So that's basically where it's going at this point. It's kind of like in limbo until we have an opportunity to discuss with John and also do some further investigating in terms of, he is going to come back to us in terms of, you know, the price that he thinks they could build another small facility away from the clubhouse. And if someone would be interested at some point after we decide to sell the land or give the land to them, then he wants to sell. So it's all in, I guess I would just say, somewhat in limbo at this point. But we did discuss the Walton Club this evening, and we also had a presentation from the Civic Center regarding the fact that they would like to make some changes as far as what the city would be willing to do. So again, both of these issues were brought before property, but nothing is such that we can actually bring it to the council, or it certainly is not, at this point, no decisions have been made.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
What was the proposal brought forward by Walton Club?
So what?
What was the proposal that Walton Club brought?
Do you want to go?
Sure, I can explain it. The property where their current clubhouse is owned by the city, but they own or have built the clubhouse. And the clubhouse at this time, I'm sorry for the poor term, back in the day, it worked well because people had more wedding receptions and dances, and more people went to a club like that, they don't feel like they can financially handle having such a big building at this point, so they'd like to sell the building. Well, we own the ground underneath. So the discussion was, how do we get around that process? They would like to sell that building and then build a smaller clubhouse with maybe, with still a bar and a small grill, so on one piece of ground, but then get rid of that other larger piece of ground, which costs them a considerable amount of money to upkeep and keep running.
Where are they gonna build?
Back to that would be the
Northwest.
west.
Yeah, northwest.
Almost the north, it's
North
kind
of the
just
parking lot.
angles
So-
over there.
So when you,
Where
yeah,
Long Nine Green is, basically, right?
well, kind of, that would be northwest of the putting green.
So there's another city-owned lot right there that they could buy from us and then use the money they hope to get from selling the existing lot with the clubhouse to build the smaller, more energy efficient, more appropriate to their current usage building. So they're going to make a pitch for how much they'd be willing to buy the lot they're on or a portion of the lot they're on, so they can sell the building. It's awkward because the city doesn't own the building. The city didn't pay for the building. That was paid for by this private nonprofit organization sitting on a city-owned lot, which is awkward. So they'll get appraisal and then come back and say, hey, we want to buy this part of the lot for this amount.
There's a paved trail there too, isn't there? Goes down to the bridge.
The cart trail.
Cart trail.
Yep.
It's on city property, but they own
They own the building, we own the lot. Well,
How did that happen? I mean, how did that happen that the city owns the land and the building?
someone thought it
Back
was a cool idea.
When Walton was established, the city owned pretty much all the property, is that right, John?
Yeah.
And everyone built their own buildings on it. So you owned the building, but the city owned the land. And then they went through and sold out the lots a few years ago,
But not this one.
but not this one.
Actually, Judy, the only place where somebody built something that they actually owned was the Walton Club site. Everybody else had seasonal cottages that were on leased land that the city renewed cabin lot leases on a 1 or 2 or 5 year basis, depending on what was there. There were some things that were more 4 season and some things that were basically the summer cottage. And when they did that, the Walton Club that we know today is a product both of what was there before. There was some insurance, and the wooden clubhouse structure burned. And Martha was telling the committee she watched it burn. The clubhouse that got rebuilt was built partly by insurance proceeds. I know some of this because I know some of the people that participated in the reconstruction. Martha would identify with these guys, Russ Schaefer and his family and his father were part of the masonry work out there. And they, I know, contributed or donated a lot of what they put into it, but they managed to get a really nice mason-walled clubhouse to replace the old wood structure. And I couldn't really tell for sure whether Larry's saying that's going to get torn down completely, but I think...
I don't think, I mean, obviously, the committee has just sort of, he said 2 years ago, they sort of were concerned and started thinking about maybe the thing to do was to dispose of the clubhouse as it is now, which I'm sure is an expense. I mean, because it's not new, and I'm sure like all buildings, it has maintenance issues. And I think that's what evidently has really sort of pushed them to the idea of maybe what we could do is, you know, get rid of it, and then we could have just a very small little facility, which would be over kind of by the practice tee area, is what I would say. It's like we say, it's sort of, it's north and a little bit west of the current clubhouse area. So, I mean, I think they've sort of came to us. I mean, Larry called me and I said, you know, you need to come to the committee because you can answer some of the questions that people will have for you. So tonight was just sort of that initial project of, you know, is there a possibility that the city would be willing to, you know, work with them?
Yeah.
And they're not intending to tear it down. They want to sell it to someone who will repurpose it, I think is their goal. They themselves aren't going to demo the building.
Yeah.
They want to sell it.
Parking lot is owned by the city too?
Yes.
They
Can't
may,
imagine anybody would buy that building. I suppose someone might.
Walton Club maintains the parking lot, even though it's city property. So Walton
But they use
maintains
it.
that, and they'll still need some of that parking. And then if, one of the ideas they've had is to repurpose the building into apartments. So if that happens, then they'll still need parking for the apartment building also, so.
Well, of course, when he initially presented it, you know, if this were the case, then whatever, then the city could then, this would be something, if people purchased and built something there, then that would be on the tax roll, so that, you know, that would be an advantage for the city to have that. So, I mean, you know, it sounds, you know, interesting, but there are a lot of loops and hoops that we're gonna have to jump through to actually transpire. So, as I say, it's
Obviously
not to the
rezoned
point
then,
that you know, we're ready to bring anything to the
Or
council,
a
because we have a
special
lot of
use
work to
or
do
a
first.
variance for that building then.
Yeah. Paul?
I just want to ask about the second part of your meeting. I know I came in and we're talking about the Civic Center. That seemed to be an interesting discussion.
Well, and of course, you know, they came to us tonight asking, you know, for additional assistance from the city. Financial assistance, big time.
Yeah, what they did was, so they took the 2010 lease agreement where it said that all building maintenance would be at the renter's expense. And that was something that was really important to the voters back in 2010 when the referendum came, should the city buy the building or not. The naysayers all said, you know, if you buy it, you're just going to have to maintain it. It's going to become a money-sucking project. And so to answer that, the lease agreement was pretty explicit that all the maintenance, exterior, interior, structural, all of it would be the Civic Center's responsibility, not the city's. Now that we've paid the building off, there's a lot of deferred maintenance, $1 million, maybe $1.5 million worth of fixing that needs to be done. And the proposal was they changed the lease agreement. I don't know if it didn't get sent around to everyone, just the committee.
Might have been just the committee, yeah.
So they changed one line where it said that all structural and exterior work would be at the expense of the renter, and they changed that to the owner, which is the city. So when we talked about it, that's a big, gigantic question mark of what is that going to cost? So we didn't feel comfortable at all with that wording. Instead, we said, why don't you come back and say, hey, what could the city help with? You know, how much do you have to work with, in a sense, now that we're not paying the mortgage? Maybe a better approach, because, you know, if we sign on the dotted line and suddenly we're responsible for, you know, over $1 million of repair work, where is that going to come from?
Well, last winter, didn't we,
We allocated
we
money.
allocated money to do the.
To do a study.
To do a
Correct.
study.
Yep.
Was it $10,000?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
And this is the product here?
No.
This has nothing
We
to do
have,
with our
the study is done. We didn't have it, we don't have the product where Melanie and I have sat down and really hammered it out to get a good idea how much it's gonna cost, because that wasn't part of the study. It was just, okay, what needs to be fixed, how much, and what things will need to be fixed, not, okay, how much does each of those, the costs come up, or how much are they? So,
So this document is the same one they came to us with
a
over
couple
a year
years ago. Yeah, that's what this is,
That they
yes.
put together themselves.
Yes.
Okay.
How is this different from what people were concerned about 10 years ago, what they're asking, what the Civic Center is asking?
Different in what way?
Is it this asking to change the lease, the change in lease terms, where the owner of the city is responsible for maintenance, exterior maintenance? Is that what people were concerned about happening 10 years ago?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what the naysayers predicted would happen. And so I told them that no matter how much I support this, I may have to vote no just to say I stayed true to my word, because I told people in 2010 that wasn't going to happen. Vote yes, and we won't pay for the maintenance. Obviously, times change, things change, but that was the promise that was made to the voters.
And I'd like to say that 10 years ago, we also had a council member, Mr. Myron Gookin, who also said, okay, it's our building. We need to start a capital fund for its maintenance. And that's never been done. Now, I think part of the reason is because, we were paying off the building, right? So there wasn't extra funds to build a capital fund for deferred maintenance. So that was also talked about 10 years ago.
That the city should be, in fact, responsible, understanding that something like this was going to happen.
Yeah, but I don't think that was consensus by all council members.
Yeah, definitely not. No, the consensus was, and Myron was on board with the airtight lease agreement that put all the expense for maintenance on the convention center. And at the time, the convention center board representative came to council, said, if you can just buy the building and clear us out of that mortgage debt, we're golden.
Well, and part of the reason too was that when it was built, that they thought because they were a nonprofit, they would not pay any property taxes. And when the assessor came through, they said that's not the case. They were going to have to pay some property taxes. And so that also changed a big thing in it too.
Right. Well, and I think because of the fact that they've, let's face it, with the COVID situation, I mean, they've really had, it's almost been like a shutdown situation because, I mean, they've had no opportunity for any income that would, help them. So I'm sure they're like everyone, they're kind of, digging deep and looking for some funds very much.
Right now, I think we cut everybody some slack because of COVID. The problem is for 10 years, it was in the lease agreement that the tenant was to have a reserve fund for maintenance. And we had a couple of examples of them paying for something. I think Jean Greco told us that she was sure they had used some of that in the early years, but there hasn't been anything like that in recent years. And so the tenant hasn't been doing the reserve. I remember before we had the change of use for our local option sales tax to take over the building payments, we had the property taxes, as the mayor mentioned, they were about 200,000 plus a year, and we were rebating back to meet those out of our lost funds to keep this from being a delinquent tax property. And that was a agreement that was a pretty good justification also for the city taking it over, because the city had a much better position as far as being non-taxable or not wanting to pay taxes itself on most things. And I had to argue with the assessor frequently about every time somebody had an idea to make any money inside that facility, it came down to things like, well, if you have this part of the kitchen open 3 days a week, we're going to allocate that as something that's for profit that makes it partly taxable. And it just simplified things a lot for the city to basically own the building, but then say, we're not responsible for any of that. And the lease agreement took care of that after 2010. So right now, I think some of us were probably surprised that there wasn't anything in the reserve. And also, I think as far as the presentation we had, I don't doubt that they're very concerned about how they're going to keep on with what they're doing, and their director explained pretty well about what they can do right now. So we don't want the place to fall down. The report that you have with the engineering study and so forth, I guess I haven't seen it, and Aaron hasn't gone through it with an engineer yet, so that's probably a separate work session study sometime, I think, because this is maybe one of the bigger expenses on our plate if we have to look for it. And I mean, we're talking about something that our local option taxes won't take care of in one sitting, no matter what. So.
And
Do you have a schedule for when you might sit down with the engineer and go through the report, or?
She and I have talked about it, but I'm not so sure when we're gonna be able to go through it with a fine tooth comb. Holidays, she's on,
I mean, like by the end of January, you think? Or?
yeah. I think we could do that.
And Melanie had talked about there are contractors who will give you free estimates. So you give them the list of
Yep.
work, and then they give you a contract estimate. And that's one way to do it. Because I was surprised as well. I thought that we were paying for not just the list of repair works, but a cost estimate. Apparently, we didn't pay for a cost estimate, so we have to get that separately. But it's a long list, and some of the things have pretty big price tags. But I think that, we felt like we wanted to offer the spirit of wanting to be helpful,
Yeah.
similar to how we do it with the Carnegie Foundation. They partner with the city. So if they need the elevator, we own that building, they use it, we go in and do kind of a cost share. So
Right.
it's probably going to be something more
I
like
know.
that.
So,
Yeah.
it's like, where do we go next? Right.
Yeah.
Further discussion is going to be not easy. Because I think they pretty much have, shown their hand. So it will
Yeah.
be
it's a
very
it's a
challenging.
tough problem,
Very
and
challenging.
has been for many, many
Right.
years. It's been challenging.
It's just
And,
like we just need more resources.
yeah.
Just need more money.
Being on that board for 10 years, I think I've been off maybe 3 years, I'm not sure. And believe me, if we could have created an additional fund for maintenance, we would have. But money was not spent foolishly there, I can tell you that much. They're pretty tight with the dollar. And, but it's an ordeal. That's all I can say. It's a, we want to support it, and we own the building, and, it's amazing, I think, that the community has kept it open all this time. I mean, Fairfield's been amazing donors to that place, and I expect it to continue. It's just that it's challenging right now
Yes.
because of COVID. Makes it extra special challenging, so. Okay. Administrator reports?
Yeah, I will keep this short. I have been to a couple meetings. I was part of the Kiwanis meeting. I've been asked to be part of the church board at First Baptist Church, so I will be actually going to the council meetings as their moderator starting in January. Yeah, I know. The other.
Going to their, wait, as a moderator, going where?
At the First Baptist Church.
You're a moderator for council?
No, as the moderator for their council.
Oh, I see. They have a council.
Yes, they have a council.
Okay.
So I will actually be essentially sitting in that chair for their board meetings. We had a meeting last week with the 28E board for the dispatch center. That went pretty well. There's more information to be put out or to discuss regarding budget, regarding putting together an ordinance or a codifiable plan for the dispatch center to show the 28E, and then we need to have the Emergency Management Commission vote, from our perspective, to vote the levy in favor of implementing the levy. And then we'll continue to need to work with the 28E as how that affects the 28E that between the county and the city. So it went well, but I think from the county's perspective, I don't think they're as keen on it as what we would be, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Is that a fair statement?
I thought it was more positive than that.
Okay, well,
All the mayors of the outlying communities
we've-
are in favor of this levy.
yeah, the mayor, Mayor Boyer and I have talked to all of the mayors except for the one from Pleasant Plain. And they all seem
won't
to
talk
be
to
in
anybody.
favor of that. What's that?
He won't talk to anybody, apparently.
Yeah, he's hard to get a hold of.
But the county just acts as an agent, as a pass-through agent for the money.
Right.
So that it's not really,
He's not the mayor that just passed away, is he?
I don't believe so. No,
That would make them hard to reach.
that would make him hard to reach.
It was the
We're at
one in
that
what,
point.
Brighton? Pleasant.
Yep.
No, I
so
know,
the,
one of them just passed away up there. One of their mayors just passed away. It was Brighton, okay.
And we don't have any department heads, correct? I'm sorry, Doug, were you done? Are you going to say another comment?
no, I'm done, I think.
Okay,
Thank you.
no. Okay, well, with that, I guess I'll take entertain a
I
motion
move
to
we adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Floney, second by Toohill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.